Hello and welcome to the part 2 of Generative AI Fundamental series. In the part 1, we looked at the fundamentals of Generative AI like LLMs, tokenization, embeddings, and also at the fundamentals of Azure OpenAI like Copilot and Transformer model. If you haven't watched that video, the link is in the description and also here. Please go ahead and watch it. Now, in this video, we're going to talk about the fundamentals of responsible AI. We know that Azure OpenAI in particular or generative AI in general is a powerful technology, and with great power comes great responsibility. So we need to ensure that generative AI solutions are used in the right manner and they are developed in a safe and reliable manner. And that's when the responsible AI framework from Microsoft comes into the picture, where it guides you as you develop your generative AI solutions. All right, so let's get started and dive right into the presentation and learn about the fundamentals of responsible AI. All right, welcome back. Let's learn about responsible AI. So here are the key objectives of this video. We're going to learn what is responsible AI. We're also going to see Microsoft responsible AI framework or standards, then how to plan responsible generative AI solution. We're also going to look at as to how to identify potential harms in a generative AI solution, measure those harms and mitigate them. And then towards the end, we'll look at how to operate a responsible generative AI solution. All right, so first thing first, generative AI is one of the most powerful advances in technology ever, right? We all agree with that. And then with immense power brings immense responsibility. So that's when responsible AI comes in. So what is responsible AI? An approach that identifies, measures and mitigate risk is called responsible AI. Okay, and what this requires is, this requires people who work on generative and developing and operating generative AI solutions like data scientists, developers, architects or others who are involved in creating generative AI solution to adopt a responsible AI approach. Okay, so that's very important. And then what is Microsoft responsible AI standard then? Well, it's a framework that consists of six key elements. First is, as you can see on the screen, fairness, transparency, privacy and security, reliability and safety, accountability and inclusiveness. Let's see what each of them mean in detail. So by fairness, what we mean is AI system should treat all people fairly. They should not be biased, and they should be reliable and safe, right? They should offer reliability and safety. AI systems should perform reliably and safely. Okay, we as humans should be able to rely on them. And then they should also be private and secure. They should offer privacy and security. They should not intrude our privacy, and they should not be insecure. Okay, and then inclusiveness as well. AI systems should empower everyone and engage people. They should bring that inclusivity with them. And then transparency. They should be understandable. They should be transparent, right? And then last but not the least, they should be accountable. People should be accountable for AI systems. People who develop these solutions should be made accountable for what they've done. All right, so let's see how to plan a generative AI solution in a responsible manner. So Microsoft has defined a four-stage process to develop and implement a plan for responsible AI when using generative AI models. Okay, so it's a four-stage process to develop a responsible AI solution. First, we need to identify potential harms that are relevant to your planned solution. Okay, so you need to identify, think through and identify those potential harms, and then measure the presence of these harms in the output generated by your solution. Okay, we're going to look at how to do that. Okay, and then the third, once we have identified, measured, we need to ensure that we mitigate the harms at multiple layers in your solution to minimize their presence. Okay, and then operate the solution responsibly by defining and following a deployment and operational readiness plan. That's the four-stage process for developing a responsible generative AI solution. Right, now let's see each one of them in detail. Now let's see how to do or how to identify a potential harms in a generative AI solution. Now, identifying, as you know, identifying potential harms that occur in or be caused by an AI system is the first stage of the responsible AI life cycle. Okay, it's the first stage. And so there are four steps within this stage. Okay, uh, and this is important to note here that this should not be confused with the first four stage that I talked about. So these are the four stages within the identifying potential harm step. So the first one is obviously identify potential harms. Okay, let me get here, identify potential harms. And the second one is prioritized identified harms. Okay, so you will identify it, and then you'll prioritize as to which is the one that you should give high priority to. Okay, not all of them have the high priority, so we'll look at how to prioritize them. And then you test and verify the prioritized harm. Okay, and then you need to document and share the verified harms with the necessary stakeholder. So common type of harms that can occur in generative AI solution are generative AI content that is um offensive, pejorative, and discriminatory, and generating content that contains factual inaccuracies, generating content that encourages or supports illegal or unethical behavior or practices. Okay, so these sort of things can occur in a generative AI solution when it generates the content. Okay, so let's see. Now, identify potential harms associated with model capabilities. So what I mean by that is, let's consider GPT-3 versus GPT-4 model. You see, each model has its own capabilities, limitations, and risk. Not all of them are same. So since each model has different capabilities, limitation, and risk, we need to ensure that we consult the available documentation, and that's when we'll get to know as to what are the risks associated with those models. Okay, for example, let's say DALL E model that generate images, there is a risk that it might generate images that's not true. So that's when we'll get to know when we consult those documentation. So for example, the Azure OpenAI service includes a transparency note. I'll include this link in the description, which you can use to understand specific consideration related to the service and the model it includes. Okay, so that's how you would identify the harms in your generative AI solution. You'll consult the documentation, you'll understand its capabilities, limitation, and the risk it poses, and you'll ensure that you develop the solution keeping these things in mind. Okay, now once you've identified it, we need to prioritize these harms. Okay, for each potential harm you've identified, assess the likelihood of its occurrence and the resulting level of impact it does. Okay, so we need to assess how likely that this can occur and what sort of impact that it creates. Okay, when it does occur. So then use this information to prioritize the harms with the most likely and impactful harm first. Okay, so once you've identified and prioritized that this can occur, then you'll use this information to prioritize it. Okay, then example, let's take an example. Suppose you're developing a smart kitchen co-pilot that provides recipe assistance to chef and amateur cooks. Okay, so just a kind of a co-pilot, the co-pilot that we looked in the first video. It's kind of a co-pilot that helps the chefs and amateur cooks provide recipes. Okay, now potential harm that might occur is the solution provides inaccurate cooking times, resulting in undercooked food that may cause illness. You might be cooking a non-veg dish, and it's telling you to just cook it for 5 minutes when it may not, because of which it might be just undercooked. Okay, and then when you prompt it, the solution, when you enter a prompt, let's say give me a recipe for some dish, it may provide you a recipe for a lethal poison that can be manufactured from everyday ingredients. Okay, so this can happen. These are the two harms, let's say, that can happen in a copilot solution that you're developing for providing assistance to chefs and amateur cooks. All right. So now, so we need to prioritize. So within these two, which is the one that gets the higher priority? Obviously, the second one is looking very, very high priority because it's a matter of life and death over here. Whereas if you just cook, if you eat undercooked food, it may just cause illness, but the other one will just cause person to die. So we need to ensure that we prioritize in the right way. That's why the priority comes into the picture here. Now, once you've identified, prioritized, you need to test and verify that the presence of this harm, it actually exists. So you can test your solution to verify that the harm occur, and if so, under what condition. Okay. Your testing might also reveal the presence of previously unidentified harms that you can add to the list. Okay, so while you test, it's possible that your solution may give you certain harms that you didn't think through, you didn't identify it, but it some of the other reason it's coming up in your solution. So that's something that you can add to your list if it does. Now, use red teaming to test for potential harms or vulnerabilities. So you may be aware, red teaming is a strategy that usually used in cybersecurity to test solution, to ensure, to check if there are any loopholes in the solution that cyber criminals can exploit. So you can use similar strategy here as well to do red teaming for your solution to check potential harms or vulnerabilities. That's the example test. Okay. You can just say requesting poison recipes. Okay, you can just give this prompt and let's see what it says. And then quick recipes that include ingredients that should be thoroughly cooked. So these are the few examples of how you do that. And then once you've identified, prioritized, and tested, you need to document and share it with the respective stakeholders. Okay. Document the details and share them with the stakeholders like your manager or the CTO, or whoever who is supervising this entire project. And then the prioritized list of harm should then be maintained and added to if new harms are identified. Okay. So hope this makes sense. And then that's just the identify part of the broader umbrella of responsible AI framework. The second one is measure the potential harms. Now you've identified it, let's measure, let's quantify them. Now test the solution to measure the presence of an impact of the harms, obviously, and then create an initial baseline that quantifies the harms produced by your solution in a given usage scenario. Okay. So you create an initial baseline. Okay. And then uh, you need to track the improvements as you make changes to your model, as you make changes, as you add the safety mechanism we're going to discuss in the next slides. As you do that, you need to track improvement against the baseline as you make iterative changes in the solution to mitigate the harms. Okay. There is a generalized approach to measuring a system for potential harms, and it consists of three steps. Okay. So here's a one, two, three. Let's see what they are. First one, prepare a diverse selection of input prompts that are likely to result in each potential harm that you have documented for the system. Okay, so you need to have a diverse set of input prompts that you think might result in the potential harm that you've documented. Okay, so give or instruct your prompt to do things in a variety of format, use a different language, comes from different angle, and see how it's behaving. And then submit the prompt to the system and retrieve the generated output. Okay, you will submit the prompt and retrieve the generated output. And then apply predefined criteria to evaluate the output and categorize it according to the level of potential harm it contains. So what you do is, here you apply predefined criteria, you'll evaluate it. Like you've given a prompt, and whatever output it generates, you're gonna evaluate whether that's harmful or not. Okay. Based on some criteria that you've set. So whether it has to be a harmful response or it's not harmful. Okay. Hope this makes sense. Let's move ahead. Now once you've identified, measured, and test, it's time for you to mitigate those potential harms. How do you do that? After determining a baseline and a way to measure the potential harm, yeah, generative AI solution, you take steps to mitigate those, and it's a four-step process. Mitigation of a potential harm is a four-step process. Let's look what are there. First one is at model level. You mitigate things at the model level. We'll see what it is. Second is safety system. Third is meta prompt and grounding, and fourth is user experience. All right. So the model layer consists of generative AI models at the heart of your solution. Let's say if you've developed a solution, let's say smart co-pilot, kitchen co-pilot solution, then obviously you would have used a model, right? Generative AI model. Let's say you would have used GPT-4. Okay. Now, what mitigation can we apply at this model layer? So what we mean is, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Selecting a model that's appropriate for the intended solution use. Okay, you need to ensure that you select a model that's appropriate for the intended use. uh, for a basic yes, co-pilot, like kitchen copilot that we just talked about, GPT-4 might be a you know very powerful and very superior model. So you may not just go for a basic one that necessitates, or that's that suffice your need. So that's what it says, selecting a model that's appropriate for the intended use, and then fine tuning a foundation model with your own training data so that the responses it generates are more likely to be relevant and scope to your solution. So you fine tune it with your own data. Okay. That's about the model layer. That's the mitigation that you've applied the model layer. Now what is it that you can do at the safety system layer? Let's say now the safety system layer includes a platform level configuration. So what I mean is, let's say if you've hosted your generative AI solution on, let's say, Azure OpenAI, then Azure OpenAI becomes your platform, and what you can apply here is content filters. So there you go, as it shows on the screen. Content filters is a feature that's in preview right now that you can apply. So it filters the content. Okay. So it has got two mechanism. First is severity level. It filters based on the severity level. It checks whether the output that your generative AI solution has given, is it safe or low in terms of severity, medium or high. Okay, that's a one way of uh, content filtering. The other way, way is category. Categories of potential harm. Like, is it hateful, sexual, violent, or self-harm? Based on that, it filters your content. Okay, that's the second mitigation that you can apply at the safety system layer. And the third one is the meta prompt and grounding layer. Okay, this approach focuses on the construction of the prompts that are submitted to the model, right? It focuses on the way you construct your prompt. Okay, so techniques are specifying meta prompts or system inputs that define behavioral parameters for the model. So you specify meta prompt. As you might have looked in the first video, I talked about the system message. Okay, when you set a system message, you tell your LLM what is it supposed to do, what are its boundaries, and how does it need to respond if a question is submitted to it, if a prompt is submitted to it that goes out of its boundary. That's what it's saying here. Specifying meta prompt system input that define behavioral parameters for the model. That's the one way of meta prompting and grounding. The second way is applying a prompt engineering to grounding data to input prompts, maximizing the likelihood of a relevant non-harmful output. Okay, so before you submit your prompt, you add grounding data, you add more context to it. Okay, you give the entire context, and then you say what you want the solution to do, taking that grounding data and your input prompt. Okay, again a technique that I mentioned in the part 1 of grounding data. And then using RAG, retrieval augmented generation approach, to retrieve contextual data from trusted data source and include it in prompts. Okay, so these are the three techniques that you can apply uh, as part of meta prompt and grounding layer, which is the third layer in the entire safety mechanism that we can apply. um, okay, and the fourth is user experience layer. Okay, software application, you know, so you might have developed a software application that's interacting with the LLM, right? So there are certain things that you can do at the software application layer itself to minimize or mitigate these harms. Okay, and then you can develop documentation that you can share with your entire team, to increase the knowledge of the entire team, to to be in a position to query these LLMs, and then you can develop collateral as well. Now, how to apply mitigation at user experience layer? As I said, design the application UI to constrain inputs to specific subjects or types. So you have designed UI to constrain inputs to specific subjects and types. Let's say you won't allow any sort of hateful content. As soon as you enter any hateful prompt that's filled with hate, it would just constrain it, say, no, sorry, you're not allowed. Okay, and then apply input and output validation can mitigate the risk of potential harmful responses. Okay, so yeah, that's the uh, end of mitigation. Now, how to operate a responsible generative AI solution? Now you have developed a generative AI solution. Okay, you have identified, you have measured, and you have applied the safety mechanism for mitigation. Now let's see how to operate. Once you have a developed a solution, how do you operate it? Now, complete pre-release reviews. So before you release your generative AI solution to the broader audience, you need to check certain things. That's what I mean by pre-release reviews. One is from legal standpoint. Okay, does it do anything that's illegal? Okay, privacy standpoint, is it intruding the privacy of its users? And then security, is the solution secure? Has it got all the secure mechanism? Okay, and then accessibility. So these are the four things that you need to look from their lenses to your generative AI solution, and then release and operate the solution. So as you release the solution and operate it, these are the things that you need to keep in mind. You need to devise a phased delivery plan that enables you to release the solution initially to restricted group of users. So you don't go ahead and release the solution to the entire company at, in one go. No, just release it to few subset of users, and see how it behaves. Take feedback from them, and then create an incident response plan. That's if something bad happens, if it gives some response that's filled with hate, violent, sexual, then there should be a mechanism that the users are can file an incident, and then you can take it up, and then create a rollback plan as well that defines the steps to revert the situation to a previous state in the event of an incident. If something horrific happens, then there should be a rollback plan that you can use to revert the solution back, and then implement the capability to immediately block harmful system responses when they are discovered. So you can also have a capability that immediately blocks harmful responses when they are discovered. Okay, you can use variety of features from within Azure's offering. Probably I'll discuss them in the upcoming videos. And then you need to implement a capability to block specific users, application, or client IP addresses in the event of system misuse. Okay, let's say if your solution is being misused by some person from a specific user ID or an IP address, then you need to have a capability that blocks it. Then implement a way for users to provide feedback and report issues. This is very, very important. Yes, you might have noticed this in ChatGPT or Bard as well. They themselves self have this capability. As soon as it generates a response, it asks you over there if it like it, don't like it, or if you have any sort of feedback to provide. So yeah, these are the few mechanisms that you need to apply as you operate and roll out your generative AI solutions to the broader audience within your firm. Okay, and then track telemetry data that enables you to determine user satisfaction and identify functional gaps or usability challenges. Okay, perfect. Hope this was informative, and I hope this helps you in clearing your AI 900 exam, and it hope it helps you in broaden your AI knowledge. All right. So thank you so much for joining in again. My pleasure to be sharing my knowledge and my inputs on this amazing technology. All right. Thank you so much. Take care. See you on the other video. Bye bye.